started at the fish company in 1983 as a cook. And then I worked as a cook and then moved into waiting and then moved into bartending and then kitchen manager and then general manager. I think I did a stint as bar manager and ended up buying a 10% partnership in the business. And I was there all the way till 2004 with a 2-year break for the Crosstown Freeway project and a 2-year break when I burned out and went to work for a general contractor for a couple of years. And then I came back in more of an administrative role after that. But yeah, got a few years and a lot of memories.
Your goals were our goals. I love that. That was inspirational. There's not many people that do that for you in your life. Besides
Financial, restaurants are very social. I mean, it's your social life and your source of income. Hospitality is like that, but I don't think you get the same feeling. Right. For a 2-year stint as a general contractor, I got put on a really complicated medical building, and I brought the plans over to your dad's house, and I go, "Hey, can you help me figure this stuff out? I just don't get it." And he didn't even open the plans. He goes, "I got a job at a plywood factory, and these sheets of plywood were coming out so fast, and I had to guide them out of the planer and get them on this." And I'm thinking to myself, what's this got to do with the fact that I can't manage this project and I don't know what I'm doing? And he says, "I just showed up every day, and by the end of it, I was producing more than the guy before me." And it was just a really simple analogy about just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And, and he was so calm, and he goes, "These things would come off and they're coming so fast. And I just got into this rhythm and I could just stack that plywood all day long." And anyway, he put me at ease. Yeah.
I've never heard that story. Thank you for sharing that story.
It's a great story about your dad. He was really, he didn't even want to look at the plans because I'm like all about the plans. I'm going, "I don't know what's going on, page 68. And he goes, "Don't worry about that. Just show up and you'll figure it out as you go." So it was really, really a good lesson.
Greg, thank you so much for
of course
doing this. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I don't know if I've ever told you enough, but I
really you too. I appreciate you. You really, you took the $2.5 million of sales I had at the Enterprise Fish Company. You took it to 4.5. And, I had a friend of mine. Okay, 5. Okay.
5.2.
Yeah. And it's like, I remember a friend of mine who was a fellow accountant. He goes, "It's a lot easier to cut costs than it is to grow sales." And he was right, because me as an accountant, I was always looking for ways to, keep the costs in line and try to drive sales. But you doubled them. That was just fantastic. And I remember how I think you did it is that you gave people more choices. You expanded the menu, and it just it had a lot of things on it, and you were big on choices. And if you give people choices, they'll come.
And a lot of it, Greg, was that back to the 3-table thing that you gave me out front, and you said, "See what you can do it with it." And then and that learning, that beating yesterday, that was, every single shift at every restaurant, all our, in our pre-shift meetings, we lined up and we talked about how we're going to beat our goals. Can you do this? I don't know if you can do it. Can you do it? And I learned all that from you. And they went out and did it. $100 per person a day after 16 shifts times 52 weeks and 3, all that stuff. So we just kept growing. But I learned a lot from you. I respect you so much. And I'm glad that we got to do this, because I'm sure there will be a lot of listeners out there
one thing I do believe is, walking those floors is kind of a young man's sport. You're putting in 20,000 steps a day, for sure. So it's kind of a young man's sport, and nights and weekends and all that stuff. Once you start to have kids, it's a little
holidays. You're there. You're in. Enterprise Fish Company had a slang, right? There were certain things that you would say, not only describe the food, but habits.
Whenever it was time to go get a beer, they'd start yelling "pull" from the back. The kitchen would yell it, and spackle, spuds.
Baack described potato Romano, right?
Potato Romano, yeah.
Okay.
I've still got that recipe. I have a lot of recipes because I put together the menu. It came from scraps of paper in the back of Jose Mercado's pocket. So I finally, wrote them all down and put them on a disc. And that ages me right.
Let's go open another enterprise fish company, Greg.
What's that?
You and I go open another enterprise fish company. You got the recipes.
Dude, I'm like 5 years from retirement, man. I don't know if I got it in me.
Yeah, I don't know if I do either.
I got too many. You know what? One thing I do believe is, walking those floors is kind of a young man's sport. You're putting in 20,000 steps a day, for sure. So it's kind of a young man's sport, and nights and weekends and all that stuff. Once you start to have kids, it's a little
holidays. You're there. You're
liked breaking records. Something about it,
Yeah.
It's.
You instilled it in me. It was a lot of fun. It's fun to do that.
Yeah, it is.
After hour, it's fun, right?
And it's fun to rally your team and go, hey, last year on the Saturday of UCSB graduation, we did 18,000 in one day. I bet we can do 20. So first thing you do is raise prices, and then you go out there and push the turn but it's always good to just do it. It's good to be ultimately, I wanted to set records for profitability. I remember one time I was talking to Soren about something. He goes, all you care about is money. And I'm like, I don't know, it's a business. We're not, they don't pay us because it's all fun and games. They pay us because it's hard work.
Yeah.
So I liked breaking records, profitability records, highest sales in a single day, highest sales in a month, highest sales in a weekend. I liked breaking records. Something about it,
So there's that side of you that's that can handle that stress, that actually likes that a little, it thrives on it and actually exceeds and excels at that level. And then there's this other side of Greg Hamm that's the guy that believed in me and the guy that gave me 3 tables and probably went and bought them from Home Depot, just to give me an opportunity and let me get, follow that dream. And I did because of you. How do those two sides of you, do they conflict a lot? Or, what's that other side of you? Where does that come from? That kindness that you want to help your staff go through college and pay for college. And that makes you very proud now.
Part of it is wanting to be liked. To help people is, it's inherently good. But it's also, it's nice to be recognized for that. But I think I remember one of the regional managers from famous restaurants, Garcia's of Scottsdale. He was chewing on me one day. He was a tough guy, and he was like, if you don't do this, I'm going to get somebody who will. And I walked away from that going, I don't want to be that guy. I don't think you get results with threatening people's livelihood. I just don't. He didn't make me feel like I wanted to commit to him. So, it's, I don't know, it's all those years of experience. It's like, it doesn't all happen at once, man. It takes time. And, I'm currently in the job. I'm an accountant, but I have 9 people working for me. And, there's folks that are very type A and drivers, and there's folks that are steady Eddie. And, I need them all. People I've managed all my life. And I know there's people that never want to manage. They don't feel comfortable making decisions. The worker bees, you need them. Every business needs them. Everybody needs them. You need people that can produce and do the work. And they don't necessarily want to manage. They don't want to manage people. They don't want the stress. They want to come in, do their 8 hours and go. So I think you need both, but I want to say there's a certain type A personality in management. You've got to be able to make decisions, and right or wrong, make one. I remember one of my favorite things to do up at the hostess stand is say, never quote more than 55 minutes because it's this mental block at an hour that people leave. And if you come up, you go 50 minutes, regardless of how the hour and a half it's going to be. And you just got to kind of recognize there's barriers out there that people will say, oh, if you tell me an hour, I'm just going to say maybe next time. But if you tell me 50 minutes, I got a chance. And so true or not, as a person, you're not always at 100%, and you got to cut yourself a break. And as you think you need to be at 100% all the time, but you're just not. And it's just, people get tired, people get frustrated, and you got to cut yourself. If you get it right 8 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times, you're plenty of mistakes over the years. Plenty of mistakes. I mean, I've lost my temper when I shouldn't have, and all of that. I've had customers. I remember customers that I would they would say they didn't like something, and I would argue with them. And then here I am years later, and I go, why don't I just give them another one?
Yeah.
Why, just, it's a piece of fish. We're not saving lives here. We're not surgeons, it's so kind of learned that over the years, look at the big picture, try to look at the big picture, and that again, we're not saving lives, we're serving food. So yeah, and how to manage different expectations from different employees. I used to think that well, I still do, that when you're a manager and you're at the hostess stand trying to manage your weight, helping the hostesses, because they get buried and they kind of just freeze up, and you got to kind of help them work through it. You've got the teeming masses coming in the front door trying to get in. You've got all the employees behind you, coming forward looking for leadership and guidance and solving problems for them, and you're in the middle, man. You're in the middle, and it's wouldn't say precarious, but it's stressful, and trying to learn how to manage that stress level. All rushes end eventually is how I finally got through it. I go, it might be Wild West right now, but it'll eventually be good, and we'll be you're a coach. You're trying to coach people to their full potential, and that different people are motivated by different things. There's people that are motivated, the guy that comes on for the first shift at lunch and stays through till 4 o'clock because he wants to break $100 day, and then there's people like, they get their 2 hours and they made their $50 and they're good. So different people, a lot of the kitchen staff, it's more important to them to spend 2 weeks in Mexico than it is to make that money. And so different people are motivated by different things. And so I wasn't always successful in reading the tea leaves, but if I understood what they needed to, I don't know, light their fire, or what was important to them, and I could play to that strength, then I think I've done the job. And again, after the freeway project, and Joey saying, we're back, but I think really my proudest moment was when the Northridge earthquake hit and everybody showed up for work. And we had no power, no lights. We just opened the front doors, opened the back doors, lit the fires. I threw Neil in the bar and said, here's some hand tickets, do your best. And Carol Ryan went in the office and rigged up a little hand phone to take reservations and tell people we were open. And I got everybody moving towards getting ready to open around 11:30. And I jumped in the car and I went to like 6 or 8 hotels, and they had easels up saying the freeway closures and everything. And I said, we're open. So if people need to go out to eat, and it was busy. We had a busy day running that restaurant with no power, and everybody showed up. The whole staff showed up and said, hey, we're in, let's do this thing.
What did that say to you about
very loyal
your leadership?
Yeah, just really you know, they love the restaurant. The employees love the restaurant as much as I did.
Mhm.
That's really what it felt like.
Now, Greg, I just, as you were talking, you really used to drive sales, like that example of you driving to the hotels to let them know that you were open. Uh, it just flashed back to me. I remember every day was like beat yesterday, right? That beat
Gotta be
yesterday book you
yesterday.
had, and
Yeah.
you would drive us. I didn't realize this until just I borrowed all of that. You know, what are you doing today? 300? Can you do 350? Can you
Mhm.
do 400? You know, and you'd hand out goals to every single server and bartender, and we all wanted to make you happy. And we love that, driving the sales and beating the sales. And that was a fun time for sure.
Well, you know, and one of the things that was I wanted to try to instill in my managers is that in order to make a bonus, you don't just go about your routine and then pull the slot machine handle at the end of the month and hopes it pays. It's really every table, every hour, every shift, you have to manage them and get maximum turn and get food coming out fast and really be an expediter of your turn, because the more people you get in the door, and you know, you got windows, you know, you've got 12 to 2 and you've got 6 to 9, and that's when you make your money. And you need to drive those sales during those peak periods. And I was always trying to uh, just drive my managers, say, you know, just try to maximize every opportunity, because at 9:30 there's not going to be that many people in the building, but at 7:30 you've got to get as many through as you can. So, and funny you should, the other one of my moments was when the palm tree blew through the up the belfry up and top, and it
Yeah.
showered everybody with broken glass, but nobody got hurt, and we shut the restaurant down. And I remember talking to Mitch, and we're looking up at the rain's coming in and trees hanging out, and he goes, yeah, I think, you know, I think we're going to be closed for like a week. And I go, no, I bet we can get open tomorrow. And I called Doug Cole from Mesa Tree, and he came out and he cut that palm tree down, and we had some guys come out and throw some plywood up, and we were like open in 24 hours. But he was like going to kind of he wanted to like be real careful. And I'm like, nah, let's just go for it and get it open.
That
You know,
was you, man.
we can get a guy to put glass in any day, but plywood will get us.
What are your feelings about Enterprise Fish Company being no more? I mean, it had a great run. Most restaurants never see that.
Yeah, you know, I think ultimately it's a because of the pandemic, you know,
Yeah.
Mike and Randy, they're probably in their 70s, and they've got their kids through college, and to try and reopen, you know, when they made the decision not to reopen, the pandemic was kind of getting better and restaurants were opening, but they were having really restrictive guidelines, and you weren't sure if they were going to close you back down again and put in another mandate. And I think they just didn't want to risk the capital to open it up again, because, you know, these restaurants, it's more than $50 to open the doors. It's like 50,000 just to get it up and running again. So I think, you know, for them, it just was probably a good time to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to sell something that isn't running, you know, and the pandemic was going, and so much uncertainty in that business that I think you can't sell something that isn't open. So they just called it quits. I don't blame them. It was it didn't surprise me. Only I mean, if they'd have been in their 40s, that might have been a different story with 3 or 4 kids to put through college still, you know, but their kids were all grown, and it just it didn't surprise me. But I would have preferred that they sold it to an old ex-employee and they kept it going. But you know, these things,
because it still has such a strong brand, and it's so many different things, you know, to so many different people. But it's still that that concept, that the idea of an old warehouse, you know, with a lot of cheesy stuff on the walls, I think is still kind of cool. I think it'll come back, that whole nostalgia, and that how many kids grew up through those restaurants.
1983, I went in as a cook. And then there was a 2-year break during the Crosstown Freeway project where the restaurant closed down. And then I remember Mitch Jan, after I was visiting him in Hawaii, and he goes, "Hey, we're getting the band back together. You want to come work for me?" And I said, "Sure." I was a budget manager for a motel chain, and they were selling to Motel 6. I'm like, well, I'm going to be out of a job in 3 months anyway. I'll take a chance. And you know, we reopened that restaurant, and I'll never forget. We were doing these mock nights and serving food for free to practice. And the last night was like 500 plates. It was so busy. And it wasn't just because it was free. People just, I had customers that said, "I can't believe we don't have to pay." And I go, "Well, we're training our staff and everything." And Joey Peralt, in all the banging and clatter and the background noise, he just walks back by me and he goes, "We're back." And we were. It was just an instant success when we opened back up. And it just kind of told me that the community was hungry for that restaurant. They just missed it. And when we opened, they came back and supported us.
Leading the charge.
It was you know, quite a place. I mean, and gosh, hundreds of people worked there over my years. Hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even begin to count them all. You know, it reminded me of one story. A guy named Paul Warmath, and I don't know if you know Paul or not, but he had a troublesome customer, and he put a 1 in front of the 5 on his tip. And I caught it going through the books, and I called him inside and we talked about it. And he goes, "Am I going to lose my job over this?" And I go, "Paul, what have you learned?" And he goes, "To not be an idiot." And I go, "It's $10. You risked your job for $10. Do you want to stay?" He goes, "I really want to stay." My first time in the Enterprise Fish Company, one of my fellow high school graduates was at UCSB, and I came down to go to school there, and he was a cook at the Enterprise Fish Company, and he told me about it. And I go, you know, I'll check it out. And I went on a date. I don't even know who she is, but I ended up there 17 years, right?
Yeah.
But there was something, it was loud, it was boisterous, it was just full of energy. And I go, wow, I want to work here. I was like you, I wanted to work there. There was something about it. And, you know, I remember speaking with Stephen Sponder, who founded the Palace Cafe, and he says, "I wrote my menu sitting at these tables here, you know, with all the white noise going on all the time." I mean, it was a loud, rowdy place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you mentioned about a certain cachet of when the employees would go out to different bars in town. And it reminded me of that description in Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. He would say that they would all go out late at night and go to the bars and be kind of, you know, gods out there. And I'm like, you know, we used to do exactly that. We'd get off shift with a pocket full of money and go downtown, you know, and everybody knew us and we knew everybody. And you know, I would look back, I've looked back and over the years, and we put a lot of people through college. We put a lot. And, you know, I saw early on that with my candidate base for people that were going to work at the enterprise, that there was a lot of students, and I needed to embrace it. And I want to help kids get through college. I value education. I went to school, and we put a lot of kids through college. We put a lot over the years, and just a great place to work. Yeah, great place. What I noticed is that whenever we launched some new menu ideas, I mean, they would take off. Not all of them, but enough of them to let you know that your base customer, they're always looking. You don't have to reinvent yourself, but you have to keep your menu fresh, and you have to update your decor, from time to time. You got to put remodel money into it in order to keep it fresh and new, because the orange roughy of Mr. and Mrs. Monk, for example, right, is not going to do it for a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man, I haven't heard that name. That was great.
I know, those
The
are great
Monks.
folks, weren't they?
They were so good.
They were
Yeah,
really
so
nice.
great.
I
wonder what
got the
happened.
job here, and then I don't know, about 50. I was here about 6 or 7 years, and they brought in a CFO, and he said, I think he said he got engaged at the Enterprise Fish Company, or it was his first date with his wife or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's stories like that. It's pretty crazy. I mean, and you were there so long and, did so much there, from ownership to management. What did you start out as?
A cook.
A cook. Oh, that's right. And your brother and Keith, right? Keith was there for a long time.
Yeah, Keith was there too. I want to say he might have been the 90s. I think he was the 90s, like the tail end of the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I was a server or a busboy, probably
Yeah.